No one expected the call that came in the early hours of that cold morning. Devon Hurst, a name many knew for his kind heart and quiet strength, had passed away suddenly. The news spread through the community like a wave of shock, confusion, and grief. Friends, neighbors, and even people who barely knew him stood still in disbelief. How could someone so full of life disappear so quickly? His death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a moment that forced everyone around him to stop and think about life, its uncertainties, and the importance of people we sometimes take for granted. Devon wasn't a public figure or a famous name in the media, but to the people who knew him, he was everything. A loyal friend, a devoted father, a protective brother, a loving husband. His funeral wasn't a ceremony filled with cameras or flashing lights. It was quiet, yet filled with a kind of heartbreak that only comes when someone real, someone truly good, leaves too soon. At the center of the funeral service stood his wife, trying to hold herself together as she clutched their daughter's hand. Tears were flowing, not just from family, but from the entire room. People of all ages and backgrounds who were touched by Devon's warmth. The cause of Devon's death shocked everyone. A sudden cardiac arrest in his sleep, doctors said. He wasn't old. He wasn't sick. He had no previous health conditions that raised alarms. One of his closest friends, Derek, said during the service, "Devon used to jog every evening, eat healthy, and hardly ever missed a doctor's appointment. If this could happen to him, it really could happen to anyone." That statement stayed with many people after the funeral. It wasn't just about saying goodbye. It was about facing a harsh reality. Life doesn't always give warnings. Sometimes it just takes. Devon's life wasn't grand in the way tabloids describe success. He worked a regular job as a warehouse supervisor, paid his bills, took his kids to school, and mowed his lawn every Saturday morning. But in the eyes of his children, he was a superhero. His daughter, 8-year-old Layla, stood up during the service with a note in her hand. In simple, childlike writing, it said, "My daddy made pancakes every Sunday and told the best stories. I don't want new pancakes. I want my daddy back." Her voice cracked as she read, and the entire room broke down with her. No headline could ever capture the weight of those words. His friends shared stories of small but powerful memories. Devon once fixed a neighbor's roof during a snowstorm. Another friend recalled how Devon took a second job for a few months to help cover a friend's hospital bills, without ever telling anyone. He didn't seek praise. He just did what felt right. And that's what made him unforgettable. His actions didn't just touch lives, they changed them. One of the funeral speakers, a pastor from Devon's church, said, "Devon wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, but when he walked into a room, everyone felt a little safer. That's not just presence, that's purpose." There's a saying that funerals are not for the dead, but for the living. That was especially true for Devon's. His passing forced many people to reevaluate their own lives. Friends who hadn't spoken in years hugged each other at the service, promising to stay in touch. Sons called their fathers. Husbands held their wives a little tighter that night. Devon's death created a space for reflection on health, time, and love. It's haunting how often we say later or tomorrow without knowing if those words will ever come. His co-workers created a memory board filled with photos of Devon during work events, birthday cakes, holiday parties, casual days in the break room. He was the one making jokes, handing out extra snacks, and helping people carry boxes even when it wasn't part of his shift. One note on the board read, "You made this place better without ever asking for anything in return." That one line perfectly summed up who he was. The funeral home couldn't hold the number of people who showed up. Chairs were brought from nearby rooms. Some stood along the walls while others watched from the hallway. The air was thick with sorrow, but also filled with a silent admiration. Devon's story, though it ended too soon, reminded people of the kind of life worth living, one built on care, humility, and quiet heroism. Devon's son, Caleb, only 13, stood in front of the crowd with trembling hands. He looked like he was about to break, but surprised everyone with what he said. "My dad wasn't a famous man, but he's the best man I ever knew. He told me, 'Real strength is being kind when no one's watching.' I'll try to be strong like him." His words didn't just comfort, they ignited something in every heart in that room. What made Devon different was that he didn't need attention to make an impact. In a world obsessed with followers, likes, and recognition, he found peace in staying real. He lived in moments, not posts. He gave without filming it. He loved without limits. And that's why his loss feels like a hole in the ground that can't be filled. There are people whose deaths make headlines. And then there are people whose deaths make ripples in thousands of hearts quietly. Devon was the latter. He didn't chase fame, but he left behind a legacy that famous names often fail to leave. In that sense, isn't he greater than many known names? Compare his funeral to those filled with drama and controversy. Devon's was filled with truth, tears, and real love. Isn't that what matters? Doctors still don't know why his heart stopped. Some say stress might have played a part. Others believe it was genetic. But maybe the reason doesn't matter as much as the reminder. Devon's death is a wake-up call. For health checks, for slowing down, for spending more time with the people who matter. His passing may have taken his body, but his story continues through the changes he unknowingly sparked. A close family friend, Maria, said during the funeral, "Devon gave us more in 38 years than some people give in a lifetime. That should make us think. How are we living? What are we leaving behind?" Her words hit hard. In one moment, she shifted the focus from mourning to meaning. It wasn't about the tears anymore. It was about choices. The final song played at his funeral was "See You Again." As the music echoed through the room, many stood silently, eyes closed, remembering their last conversation with Devon. Most didn't know it would be their last. That's what stung the most. Unspoken words, missed chances, moments that won't come back. The funeral ended, but the weight remained. People walked out, hugging tighter, looking up at the sky, wondering why the good ones always seem to go first. Some stayed back near Devon's picture, unable to move. It wasn't just grief, it was a wish for one more day, one more laugh, one more chance to say thank you. Days after the funeral, the community still hadn't returned to normal. The local diner where Devon had breakfast every Saturday kept his favorite table empty, with a small flower pot and a note that read, "Reserved for our friend." It wasn't just a gesture. It was proof that Devon had quietly woven himself into the fabric of daily life. One elderly man who sat at the table next to Devon every week broke down in tears when he saw the table. "He always asked how my blood pressure was doing. Who does that anymore?" he said with a shaky voice. These weren't grand acts, but they were real, and they're the ones that matter most when someone is gone. In schools nearby, teachers used Devon's story to remind students about empathy and kindness. A teacher at Layla's school shared with the class, "You don't need to be rich or famous to make a difference. Devon was a father, a neighbor, a helper, and that's enough to change the world around you." That day, children went home and hugged their parents. Some even made cards for their neighbors. One man's death had unknowingly started a ripple of kindness. How often do we underestimate the power of simple actions? At his workplace, Devon's colleagues started a wellness initiative in his honor. They scheduled regular health checks, created a stress relief room, and printed posters with the quote Caleb mentioned. "Real strength is being kind when no one's watching." It wasn't just about preventing another tragedy. It was about honoring someone by continuing his values. Devon had unknowingly planted seeds of change, and his passing was watering them. One manager said, "It's strange. Devon was never the loudest in the room, but now it feels like his voice is everywhere." Looking back, Devon Hurst's funeral wasn't just about grief. It was a mirror, a message, a memory we're supposed to carry forward. The question is, will we listen to what his life and death are trying to tell us? Will we become better friends, kinder neighbors, more present parents? Or will we go back to rushing through life, forgetting that nothing is promised? Devon's story isn't over. It lives on in the choices we make from this moment forward. What would you say if you had 5 more minutes with someone you lost? Would you ask why they left or thank them for staying as long as they did? Devon's life and sudden death ask us to look at our lives differently. Are we living like Devon, honest, loving, and selfless? Or are we just existing? The truth is, you don't need to be rich or famous to matter. You just need to be present, real, devoted. Devon Hurst was all that and more. His death may be a chapter closed, but his life remains a story worth telling again and again. So ask yourself this. If you left today, how would they remember you?